woods?
I'm in Southwest Florida. It's about 77 degrees. It's unbelievable.
Oh man, that is nice. That's cool. Well, we'll just kind of let everybody in here. Good morning. Good morning.
I'll
How's
be
it
right back.
going?
I'll be right back.
Okay.
2 seconds.
How's it going, Jackie? Hey, Don. What's happening? What's up, Tim? How you doing, man? Awesome. Let's go, Matthew. How are you? Cool.
Awesome.
Awesome. Cool. How's it going, Scott? What's up? How's everybody doing today? Cool.
You're muted, Tom. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Awesome. How's it going, everybody? Hey, Dawn, how you doing today?
I am well. Got Russell down here with me.
Hey, all right. How's it going, Russell? Hey, cool, cool. Got it. Matthew, what's happening? Jackie, how are you?
Steve McCarthy's in the house, man.
Bam. Let's go. Well, awesome. I'm super excited. So, Rick, did you jump back in here, Rick?
I sure did.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm super excited. This last week, I was in Utah, Snowbird, Utah, at a big, huge Go Abundance event and ran into Rick Hale. Um, and it was just great to connect with him. And so Rick is a lifelong friend and he's an author and he's just an amazing coach, trainer, leader, real estate broker. And he has been able to create an organization that last year closed over 10,000 transactions, $3.4 billion, all while he is at his vacation home in Florida. So, hey, Rick, I'm going to turn things over to you. I'm enjoying your book, Stop Settling. Maybe you can share a little bit more about yourself. And I know we got just a short amount of time. Let's jump right in here. Thanks, Rick.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the invite. And what's funny, Tom and I go way, way back, and it's one of those where we've been great friends in the business, but not super connected socially in an ongoing way. But we ran into each other over the years. We've run into each other a number of times. And back in the day, it was all about REO when REO was the thing. And one of the things that I learned early on in my career in real estate, and I got my license in 1996, so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody wasn't born who's on the call, but yeah, it's scary. At one point, you wake up and you're like, "How did I become the oldest guy in the dang room?" But back then, the secret to winning is find the market of the moment. There are no bad markets; they're just markets, and there's opportunity in every market. And so, I learned and evolved, and started out just all referral based, all handshake, hugs, and high fives, and did really well for the first few years, and ended up at Keller Williams in 1999 as an investor in the very first office, and that was an extreme blessing at the time. And I recognize and realize I'm in the presence of EXP, which is an iteration or possibly a birth child or a migration of some of that energy around coaching, consulting, and loving your people to extremes, to the extent that failure's impossible and that success is inevitable. So I'm grateful to be in the presence. Don, I think we've got some connections from way back. So good to see you, buddy.
You
Um,
too.
so what's cool, and there's an open slate for the discussion today. That Tom's like, just share what's going on in your story. And there were a few things that I think were pivotal in my life that triggered that aha moment where you're like, all right, I'm where I'm supposed to be with who I'm supposed to be with, and I'm growing the way I'm supposed to grow. And my question when I look in the mirror every day is, how do I become a better human being? Because what I've figured out is you can't give away what you don't have. And so it's all about self development, expression, crafting a plan, and then living into that plan. And so I don't want to step up here and just feel like I'm preaching or teaching. I want this to feel conversational. So I don't have the view that gives me everybody's face. But if at any point anybody wants to jump in or has a question or a thought or a, an area that I can help you with, based on my life experience, again, my goal every day is to wake up and make a difference. And it's a really fun pursuit. And, what I've also understood or figured out early on that if I create a plan that feeds and fuels me with passive income, I have margin. And so if you're not building your passive income to the level that it covers all of your life expenses, you might be missing a golden opportunity to one day wake up and go, you know what? I like what I do, but I don't love what I do, at least not the way I used to. And by shifting gears, and most people get trapped because of economic circumstances. And my goal was always to create, the ideal perfect life and then figure out how to fund it. And work was really initially all about how do I fund the perfect life? And what's cool about real estate, and I know you get this, is that you impact lives every day. So if in your DNA is, hey, I want to effectuate change and unlimited thinking in my clients and friends, people, and help them build wealth, and not only build wealth, but wealth by definition to me is far more than economic gains. It's about life experience and purposeful living. You can do that better than any other occupation I'm aware of. And, in fact, one of the simple things I did is I quit calling myself a realtor early on because one day I realized there are, I don't know, Don, how many realtors are there in the world?
I think about 1.4 million.
And so I really don't want to be part of 1.4 million people. What I do want to be is unique in my value proposition and my ability to make a difference. And so I started calling myself a wealth determiner. And then I went on to explain that wealth is, again, like I iterated a minute ago, it's far bigger than just selling. It's not transactional, it's not commission, it's not houses. There's no commission or no, transaction that's worth a relationship. And when I sort of reframed how I saw myself, I found myself behaving differently. And so, one of the questions today might be, how do you see yourself? And more importantly, how does the world receive you? Like, what do they think of if I Googled you right now, I pulled up your website and I did some search, what would I find about you? What do you stand for? And why might I want to have a conversation? Not why would I want you as my realtor, although that's the byproduct. What do you do that's so different and unique that I would wake up inspired and motivated to just connect and have a moment? And that's a phenomenal question to ask. And I ask myself that even now as I've departed my day job, so to speak. And so I'll go back and tell a little of my story, but just leave that where it is. Like, how does the world see you? And is it obvious in everything you say and do? Your social media, your branding, your images, is the avatar that you want to speak to because your heart screams for it? Are they aware that they're the target in a positive, productive way? And and then I always follow with, okay, if it's not exactly what I want, who out there is doing it the way I want to do it, that if I emulate it, it gets easier. The simple thing I learned early on is that if I admire and follow the right people and emulate and role model, and if you do what they do, you can have what they have. And again, back to, I don't remember what Don's answer was, but I think it was millions of realtors. You don't follow them all, because it's like if you try to serve everyone, you'll serve no one. So get really clear in who you're serving and why, and make that your effort, and that becomes your tribe. And that, for me, a fundamental shift in my mindset. Um, so the thing I realized in 2000 when I opened my first office was that I really, really wanted to impact people. And the other piece of this, I guess, equation, for lack of a better way to put it, was I can't give away what I don't have. And so I went on a journey of self-discovery and tried to, with coaches and consultants, own my flaws and my blind spots, if you will, or holes I might have fallen into historically. And so, life's greatest teacher is often history, but I think it's more gauged history. And that's a Dr. John Maxwell thing where, life's greatest teacher isn't experience unless it's gauged and unless you strategically analyze and change behavior. And so I went on this mission just to become the biggest, best, most awesome producing good person that, givers get. You've probably heard that. always come from contribution. We're not competitors. That's why when, Tom invites me in, yeah, I live inside of the Keller Williams ecosystem. So what now what? We're all in this together. Like we're all fighting the same fight. We all wake up with the same fear, uncertainty, and opportunity. And so there's no boundary in my mind. We're all part of, the race, and it's the human race. And hopefully it's that for significance. Um, so in 2001, I shifted gears from running a team. And by the way, the number one lesson I learned in running a team was built around the book, the MREA book. Are you guys familiar with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book?
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I figured I can't imagine you haven't, but if you haven't, write it down because it changed my life forever. And it's to a large degree non-denominational, even though it came out of the Keller camp. And it's the truisms in that book still hold today. And I was very organic in my approach to building a business, and I just outworked everybody, and I outloved everybody, and I out showed up, if you will, if there is such a thing. And I will have to, in true transparency, I paid a price at home, by being, again, you can't serve everyone and serve the people that matter most well if you're not strategic. And there was a season in my life where probably wasn't as good as I could have been at counterbalancing. But at the same time, man, I was all in, burn the boats in. And so inside of the MREA book, there were some principles that once I understood, I was able to buy back freedom and learn, you know, it, I had a little bit of ego, being perfectly honest. Like, if it's to be, why not me was my mantra, which is like my favorite thing on the planet. If it's to be, why not me? If there's someone else who's experiencing life or doing the things or has the things you want, you just have to do what they do. The catch is, if it's contradictory to your real mission and your core values, sometimes that's a problem. And I've had to box through some of those experiences too, where I thought I wanted something that ultimately didn't prove to be me. But in the book, there were a few things. One was I recognized that I'm building a business. I'm not just a salesman, even though I'm pretty good with, quality conversations, going three deep. And, there's another quick tip. If you really want to know the truth behind someone's answer, don't accept their first answer. Have you ever thought about selling? No. Tell me more. And by the time you ask the third question, you'll get to the root of what their real either fear or lack of clarity around the opportunity, or maybe it's a family. There's some family dynamics, or the people that are causing some friction that's kept them where they are. What's keeping you stuck? And so there's a book called the QBQ, the question behind the question. And I heard the author speak some 20 years ago. You don't have to even read the book. All I'm telling you, the QBQ is, there's magic in the question behind the question. And especially in challenging times, which I would argue we're kind of in a challenging time relative to the last decade. At least the last 10 years have been pretty smooth sailing. And all of a sudden I've woken up on the other side of my organization going, hey, why have we suffered 25% reduction in just about everything year over year? And, it's largely market driven. But the more important part is, okay, so what now? What's the question behind the question? What's the reason, or what's the trigger point? And, as you dig deeper, you recognize that in our industry, here's the cool thing. I don't know how many, anybody want to wage a guess? How many in your market area, how many transactions occur annually, or pick a timeline, monthly?
Well,
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Don.
oh, I was just going to say, of course, I've got agents all over the country, but I think in 2024, we just barely eclipsed 4 million transactions, and you've got to go back to the crash of 2008 to find that low of volume.
So, but here's what's awesome. I know you don't have 4 million in your market area. We might have had, 20,000 total in all of, our metro markets. The point is, for you to succeed at a high level and fulfill your economic goals, the differential might be two or even one transaction at the right sales price. And so the secret isn't necessarily get hung up on the data that now affects your subconscious thinking and your level of like, you go, holy shit, we're down, pick a number, 10,000, whatever the number is. So what? You need two human beings that believe, like, trust, and want to work with you at your average. Do the math, use the economic model in the book, and reverse engineer how many new people you need, or additional people. And literally, it may be one really good conversation a week that tips the scales between doing pretty well and absolutely top of your board of, whatever your board of realtors numbers are.
Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
I recall I was facilitating a little mastermind for the Masters Club in Sacramento back to date me. This was back in the 90s when it was pretty rough sledding, and the agents were complaining about the market then too. And I pointed out to them in that single month that we had done several $billion in volume in Sacramento, right? And so you just have to be, like you say, willing to do the work,
Yeah.
right? And you can get more than your fair share.
That's exactly right. And if you're purpose built around just connecting for the main motive or goal to make a difference in people's lives, the conversation gets easier. I remember in 2010, I had agents on my doorstep in our organization in tears, losing everything. So this isn't as tough as it was then, in my humble opinion. I don't have people knocking my door down in tears like I did then, because there's a fallback and people, they're figuring it out differently than, a 4-year run of absolute perceived despair is hard. But what I realized is their success and failure live straight out of their day planner. And at first, all I wanted to do was hug them and just let them cry and go, I'm sorry you're losing, houses, cars, family, relationships were struggling. When finances are tested, there's like a domino effect that often happens. And then I got to the point where I'm like, look, I sense some real desperation. And by the way, desperation is an incredible motivator. It's either people only change due to extreme inspiration or some version of desperation. And so I would ask you, what's really dangerous is the messy middle, where you're just getting enough done, but you're not really living into your best you, and you're not getting the results you want or deserve, just because it's that whole good being the enemy of great. But I'll tell you, the shift in my mindset was, I want to be here for you. I want to be loving and kind. But at the end of the day, I see an element of desperation, but it's not reflected in your day planner. And they'd look at me like, what do you mean? I go, open your day planner. Let's look at it. Show me how you've structured your day. Show me how you're going to outrun the feelings of uncertainty, inadequacy, or even just straight up fear from the media, like things that are, and then we can get serious about whether they're real or not. Because you realize your subconscious brain does not know the difference between made up and real. Whatever you're feeding it, it now has to process and determine whether it's made up or real. And you just ate up time and energy. And so, that's why affirmations, positive feedback, being a voracious reader or somebody who loves to grow, you feed it the right riddle and it goes to work on that riddle. If it's all about despair, uncertainty, and, somebody else's trauma, that's a lot harder and it doesn't serve you at the highest level. So instead of absorbing the trauma, I quit absorbing it and I immediately tried to flip the script on, so what now? What can you do differently? And I, kind of goes back to the basics, the 3 L's: leads, listings, and leverage. And then how are you applying yourself to build a tribe of people that love and respect you, that, so what, whenever they go to buy or refer somebody, you're the first thought they have. And I reflected on some early learning around, your business is your database. And one part of the story, I don't, and I think I have 30 or 45 minutes, whatever you guys allow. But I actually in 2002 left sales and I just delegated everything to my team and literally said, hey, my mission in life is to coach, train, consult, and build an organization. I can't do both as well as I want. And I'm compromising, it's that whole master of everything, or you try to attempt everything, you become a master of none. And so I made it my mission to be the best operating partner and open and run offices, and proceeded to build, one office to, we ended up, by the time I stepped aside 4 years ago, I had 8 or 9. And then again, to think that one day I would be part of an organization that would, 10,000 units and 3 billion involved. It's an absurd reality. Like nowhere in my goal setting was that part of it 10, 15, 20 years ago. But when you do the right thing every day and you show up every day and you recognize that the conversation and relationship is everything, one day you have, lots of cool people that want to hang out because you have common shared vision. And it's no different building a business selling houses and inside of a real estate business as it is building an office. It's all about culture, perspective, and marketing and promotion. And then showing up the way you pretend, the way you've described it, if you will. And so once I handed off that, so what I'm trying to share with you now is just land here. I quit thinking what, because when I'd wake up in the morning and think, what do I have to do today? There have been numerous times where I had a knot in my stomach and I'm just like, damn it, I don't know if I want this fight. I don't know if I want to climb that again. I've been over that mountain range and I know what's over. And then I realized it's not a what question, it's a who question. And how can I invite people to work with me, for me, either outsource, delegate, or just be a part of my team that bring me joy? And then showing up's a different conversation. And then showing up for them and their greatness naturally reflects on our common, goals in our business. And so again, I had a team we just decided to throw it, we kind of laid down our track shoes, if you will, this year after 20 years together with it's different iterations of people, but the same primary leadership team. And we sold, I think we're having prior average annual 175 houses a year for over $1 million in, revenue or in commission. So we were what they call the MREA team for 15 years straight. And, my margins weren't incredible because I was very generous in keeping talented people, but it was a 6-figure return most years, 100% passive. And so what I'm here to share with you is that if you're stressed out, it could be a little bit of what. Remember, I was reflecting on how do you invest your time in your day planner, because you can't outrun your plan. But the second half of it might be a who. You might need somebody in your world that's either better at marketing, expression, follow-up, transaction coordination. It could just be a runner. It could be a personal assistant that takes care of your duties, home duty, dry cleaning, grocery shopping. Like, what buys back 2 hours a day that if you invested in growing your database changes everything? That was a huge aha for me. And it changed everything because, you want to be more motivated, hang out with more motivated people. If you want to win big and your brand reflect, more powerfully in the marketplace, have people that reflect your culture, character, and purpose statement even better than you. And then you go to bed sleeping well, knowing, hey, it's not about me, it's about we. And we's way cooler. So that was a big aha. And the realization, again, your business is your database and the relationships you have in it. So along the way, I'll jump into another conversation. One of the really impactful things I learned along the way, if building, if who's the question, how do I attract truly talented, motivated, and inspired people? And part of it is to have a dream and a vision bigger than they currently have, that they can live into. So your story becomes their story. And in the process of finding that person, there's a hiring class at our company called Career Visioning. And I would speculate that there's alternative options for learning a process for hiring, but it takes 10 or 12 hours before I would hire somebody. And there's key steps like, the resume review and the initial interview. And then you migrate into key questions based on a personality and skills assessment. And then you move towards their life history. Where have you been? Because here's what I've learned about attracting talent. People rarely change color. Like, whatever you've been doing is what you're likely to do. You might improve, 10%, but a wholesale change in your success doesn't happen often. Successful people find ways to be successful. Show me where you've been successful in working on a team, and where's the untapped skill or potential you have in my sector, but you've developed and grown as a human in another sector. Doesn't have to be real estate. Like, again, people that are resourceful and are tenacious and are charismatic, don't quit being those things. You just have to reorient the playing field or the way you score and operate inside your system. And so I try to find untapped talent. And inside of that recruit select course, the next step was getting the book on them or their future self. And what I found about it was that it was a little thin. It was like, tell me a few things about, 3 or 4 things about where you want to be in 5 years. And I was a big fan of Zig Ziglar. Anybody listen to Zig, old school Zig? He's, man.
Oh yeah.
Talk about a badass. I love that dude. I'm sad he passed. Blessed to have seen him a few times in the flesh. He's just such a good, honest, culture rich guy and full of wisdom. but he had a 7-spoke wheel that I pulled out of one of his books. And instead of 3 or 4 categories, I'd make them rate themselves 1 to 10 in all 7. And then I'd ask them, where do they see themselves in 5 years in each of those categories? And what I found was those conversations were really where the rubber met the road. That's where, if you've got a history of success in anything, where you had to roll up your sleeves, overcome failure, dust off, get up and try again until you broke through. And if you've had a little bit of trauma that you, instead of it being debilitating, it's habilitating. And it gives you this sense of, I've got something to prove, or I've got something to show the world. I want to give back to people who felt, man, you partner those together, that is freaking unstoppable. That is like, now all I have to do is, it's like a stallion. I just need to show you what lane to run in. And then how do we, yoke up together to do something awesome? And so I took that future self strategy over a 20-year period and kept refining and defining the conversation, how I would approach it, because I'm sure can you imagine, you and I just met, we've talked a little bit about your history and your personality, and then I say, hey, can I have permission to go deep? I really want to know all of you. I want to know where you want to be in 5 years, because what I'm learning is that retention really isn't about X's and O's of skills. It's the way we connect as human beings to feel like we're on a path of fulfillment. And then I go on to show you a wheel of life that has relationships, romance, adventure, hobbies. Like, there's a dozen things that I talk about that I think really move the needle. And, for me to get honest, authentic feedback, I have to be honest and authentic. And so over time, I've learned to be vulnerable in positive ways, not to bleed all over, but just to go, hey, we as human beings are way more alike than different. And so I found that was the most powerful litmus for whether someone is a good fit. Not in everybody's a fit somewhere. God created us for purpose, but are you a fit with me? Are we in alignment? Are we synced up? And do we kind of feed off the same energy? Because that's an unstoppable force. And so it led me to write this book called Stop Settling. And just so you know, I wish I could see everybody's face. I've literally got Megan, Courtney, and Charles. Is that your Charles? I love it if it's Charles. All right.
Christina.
Charles, you're beautiful. And I only see 3 people, but I ask this question often when I teach and speak. How many of you have thought that one day you might like to write a book? And I'm stunned that it's like 40 to 60% of any audience. Now, I often speak to real estate professionals, entrepreneurs, people who are kind of go-getters. Thank you, Susan. I'm glad you're here. And so it's amazing to me what percentage do. And here's what I love about the context of the book I've written. There are a few reasons I wrote it, but in the middle of it is the whole process for finding your future self now. And so one of the greatest gifts ever in helping coach people and help people and work them, walk them through their future self, is I came to realize this is like game changing. If you can, anybody set annual goals and then do the whole, reevaluation, reset, redo. And it's like, it feels like Groundhog Year to some degree. You're like, yeah, I got close on some, far from others, disregard, whatever. And what I think people don't do is visioneer or think through what 5 years can do. And there's a saying that, you overestimate a year, and that's often a path of disappointment, but we underestimate 5. And so I, early on in learning to do this and practicing, I started crafting my own 5-year vision boards. And I'm not this hokey pokey vision board guy. Like there was times where I'm like, really, you want me to put this on a poster and like just stick it in my office? Or yeah, that's kind of hokey and weird. And over time, I realized, back to, remember I said earlier, subconscious brain is a riddle solver. If you give it a really big riddle, I find that I'm blown away by the people that show up in my life, the circumstances, the opportunities, just because I project it out. And now there's 2 schools of thought. One, it was there all along and now I'm just aware of it. Or 2, we're all made up of energy and we attract where we're going and who we are. And so I don't want to get too airy fairy about it, but I think it's a little of both. And I can tell you, when I projected 5 years, I came up, my first one I did was in 2002. I crafted some ridiculous ideas in all 12 categories, all 12 categories. And out of those, 90% came to fruition inside of 5 years. If I had subdivided those 5 year goals into 1 year, divided equally, I bet 50% might have shown up. But because life is more of a crock pot than a microwave, and instant gratification rarely plays out, I started laying blocks and sent, blocks end to end. And one day I looked over my shoulder. I'm like, I just built this fortress that can't be penetrated by, negative energy and failure. But it was small steps taken regularly with a bigger lens. And so buy the book, don't buy the book. I'd love it if you did. Probably the greatest gift we all do things. I'll start with this. The greatest gift is that 5 year future self workshop I created for people in my world. And it's the greatest gift I've given myself. And I've done it 4 consecutive times for 20 years, basically. And life changing. But here's something I've learned too. When you're doing the things that your soul seeks out, it should give you energy. It should give you a sense of reflected joy. Doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it doesn't require mindset and, a setup of sort to go tackle the world. But when you're done, it should feed your soul. Thanks for buying the book, Christina. That's thoughtful. Or thanks, Rick. Yeah. Awesome. That's Charles. That's really good. I just connected the dots. From now on, I'm reframing. You're Christina. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it. And, here's the thing about writing a book, by the way, you won't make a dime likely. Like 99% of people who write books, you don't do it for that reason. And I'll share some more inspiration of why you should consider writing a book. By the way, built into the book is the entire process for soup to nuts, start to finish, how to craft your future self. So if you want to self-administer, do it at home. Just literally add water and stir, step 1 through 20, and you'll walk away with, and my advice is go to either inside of your office or group. You can buy one big pad and share it, but they sell these big sticky top easel, I don't know, they're probably 3 by 4 feet. Do it on big paper because I don't know about you. I am a voracious note taker. This was just my notes for today, which I haven't looked at once for the record. So not sure that's good or bad, but welcome to my world of organic chaos and flow. And when I put something on this kind of paper, it gets lost in a stack of this kind of paper. It's not relevant in a day. And I don't reflect and go back. When you put something on oversized jumbo anything and you publish it, one, the universe can favor you because someone else might actually read it and have an idea or a person in their network that support your goals. The second thing is a constant reminder. Remember I said earlier, the subconscious brain is just a riddle solver? When you look at this 5-year projected image, you're going to be blown away by, again, things that show up, perceived unexpected, but actually were there. They're supposed to be there and you just weren't aware. And so, and it won't be lost in an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. But in the book, I've got the whole process. If you prefer Audible, by the way, I've got this whole, like, if you find my Southern drawl in my own, I guess, pace, I've heard that it's very soothing. My wife's like, hell no, stop talking. I'm glad I got a chuckle from Christina. That was my goal, by the way. Cheap laughs are free and fun. So I'm not afraid to throw darts at myself, but it's about 8 hours of joyful Rick Haleness. And I came from a pretty ridiculous background. I spent 10 years, I went to 10 schools in 12 years. And, I feel like life happens for you, not to you. But I have to also confess that when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of self-love and self-respect. And I felt very unlovable at times. And I felt like I had something to prove, which, it's at one point in life, I finally woke up and went, you know what, I still want to prove things, but my purpose in proving it is far less about ego and more about, serving the universe and the people I love and creating a bigger tribe of people who want to think like I want to think, because I recognize the empowered state I get from it. Unattached to outcome, attached to the experience in the conversation. So read the book if you feel compelled. And by the way, there's actually a business saying that says, you can't say yes to something unless you say no to something else. And there's some truth in that. And if your day planner doesn't reflect a strategy for attacking the day and winning, you need to rethink how you allocate your time and your energy, and maybe it's your focus. For me, again, in the MREA book, there's a whole business planning section on it that talks about people, which is the who, the lead gen strategy, and then the marketing and the what are you doing to submit yourself. And there's even an economic model which made life way easier that said, how many people do I need to touch in my database, and what frequency to get the right number of appointments, buyer and seller, which leads to the right number of contracts, which is a listing agreement or a buyer brokerage agreement, down to what percentage actually close. And then ultimately, based on your average sales price and your average commission, will lead to dollars. And I don't know about you, but there was a day when I woke up and I thought, I'm just going to talk to a lot of people and it'll all work out. And that's a little bit scary for me. It was, because there was no way to monetize or quantify it. And once I got a hold of the economic model, I just need, 10 quality conversations a week, and I need 10 ads to my database. And there's a starting course, and I'll add one more layer to this. And there's a launch course called Ignite that I used to teach. And in Ignite, there's a exercise called the Daily 10-4. Anybody heard of the Daily 10-4? So here's a quick nugget. If you're feeling a little bit of a lull, just use this exercise. Go connect with 10 people that you don't know today. You might have to go to Starbucks or, anywhere social where you go, or find a group that's of special interest, or, maybe it's charity, maybe it's a club or an organization that aligns with something you're intrigued by and interested in. So it's, you can be authentic, but connect with 10 people, send 10 thank you notes, put those 10 people in your database, and then go preview 10 houses in your market area. If you do that for 30 days, your business will return to robust. And it's just basically, it's understanding that you're trying to fight for leading indicators, not lagging. The flaw in our industry is we're often judged by the lagging or the result indicator, like how many units and how much did you make, or the gross commission, where a more fun pursuit is how many people can I have quality conversations with. And so, although this is a strategy for new people, putting to kind of force feed you to load your database and put them on a touch plan, it's also a great way to reinvigorate energy around new blood and new spheres of influence. And so it's kind of, first it takes getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and back to the basics, man. That's, if times aren't going the way you want and results aren't coming, you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because we've all heard the saying, if you, what is, I think it's insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and thinking you're going to get a different result. And what I'm here to tell you is the market should improve, I think, this year. I'm confident. There's some key indicators that look optimistic. I don't think it's going to be meteoric. And back to what I said earlier, the difference between average and superstar for you is probably 1 or 2 clients a month. Is that fair? Your average sales price? It could be well into 6 figures in terms of improved net gain, which empowers you to now rethink maybe how your business model is operating. You can afford to buy back time and freedom by hiring a person that's good at things you're not great at, but you have to do because you're kind of stuck. So there's the chicken or the egg. Do I generate more revenue and then hire help, or outsource and subcontract? Or do I outsource and subcontract knowing that I now have the time to build a greater return, being more focused? And that's a coaching question that I would take back to someone in your organization, just go, hey, let's talk through this. What is the logical, sequence of events to allow me to have, ultimate best choice and freedom, but also generate the greatest financial return on my time? And I think if you layer that with one more thought, and then how do I make a difference in the lives of more people, it gets easier. And so I've kind of shotgunned a lot. Again, I'll summarize a little bit. Pick up the MREA book and read it again if you haven't read it, or if you have read it. If you haven't read it, buy The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because I think the number is like 40% of that book is all about mindset, and about 60 to 65% is about practical how-tos. And just go back and look at your database. Don't spend time equally with people. The 80-20 rule always shows up. There's 20% of the people in your world capable of adding 80% of the return value, or their, maybe their network. And then apply some of the principles to your focus on what you're doing daily, because, I This is funny. Gene Rivers, one of my favorite people, is an educator, again, inside of our company. One of the most brilliant people I know, came to speak to my leadership council. These are my best of the best of the best. And I was so excited to fly him in, and we called it, it was our retreat, if you will, our annual. And he says, by show of hands, how many of you have big goals? And everyone in the room, no surprise, raise their hand. And he said, I mean, really big goals. And everyone, raise them even higher. And then he asked this question that just stunned me in the group. He said, how many of you are absolutely sure you're going to hit them? It was like a crash freaking landing of the Hindenburg. And I'm like, oh crap, man, half my people aren't sure they're going to hit their goals. And so it could be they set goals that were unrealistic, or, I could intellectualize all of those things. But what he said next was rocked my world forever. He goes, hey, if you lowered your hands, you're an idiot. And I'm like, oh, you just called my best people idiots. And, in true Gene Rivers fashion, he meant it lovingly, but he also wanted to slap them. There's an economic model that if you follow, your conversion rate may be different than, I see Gina now. Hey, Gina, you popped up on my screen. Gina, you and I may have different conversion rates, but if we understand the leading indicator is the number of conversations and connections and meetings with people that matter, it's irrelevant. You might have to meet twice as many or half as many. But once you figure out your conversion, now it's a fun game of how do I connect the dots to people and more quality conversations about wealth building and not transactions around real estate. By the way, I've never had anyone answer this. It's always been a positive response. When I go, I'm a wealth builder and I happen to live in the real estate sector, I say, how's your portfolio coming along? It opens up conversation. Ask more open-ended questions that lead to the second and third. Remember the 3 deep? Figure out how to go 3 deep on your questions. The question behind the question is where opportunity lives. And your only job is to serve people and add value and solve the riddle of their next step. And the only way to do that is asking really, really good questions. So when Gene, to his credit, called my people idiots, which I did not appreciate in the moment, but later only laugh about and share the story. What he was trying to say is there's an algorithm for your success that's scripted. Why leave it to chance? Why wake up hoping something good happens? Why not beat the odds by playing the game to win? When you understand strategy and the rules of the road, it's pretty hard to beat somebody. Like, for instance, chess. You ever play a really good chess player? I mean, they will beat you 10 out of 10 times if you're a novice. They know the rules and they understand strategy. No different in life. And I mean it in every category of life, not just in real estate. And so, the daily 10-4 is a great jump start to just enhancing engagement and expanding your network and sharing your story with more people, because it's a story of helping people. I think the right people will be drawn to it. The world needs you right now, and you may be shielding yourself from someone in need by playing it safe. Let that settle for a second. It changed everything when I realized I'm not out to get, I'm out to give. And givers, man, they're special. And that was always my mantra and my goal. And ultimately givers get, but awesome. That's great. That's the byproduct, but not the purpose statement. And so the daily 10-4 works. Meet 10 new people, send 10 thank you notes a day to those 10. And by the way, it can be the same person. You can also send 10 thank you notes to just people you know and love you haven't connected with in a while. Meet 10 people added to your database, which is your business. And then, so put them in your database, 10 thank you notes, and then preview 10 new houses so that you're the expert in your market area and you've got real-time data. If someone were to say, what's going on in the market? Instead of saying, hey, it's great, let's sit down and talk about what's in the database. I can load up all your criteria and it'll auto-populate everything you'd ever want to know. I found a more empowered statement is if I'm holding an open house, someone walks in and they say, I'm new to the area, or I'm thinking about, or oh, that's awesome. So what do you love about this current house? I'm not trying to sell them a house. I'm trying to understand their why, their purpose, and their goal. And if it happens to be a match, awesome. But what's really powerful is to say, you know what? I know 3 houses that might be a match. In fact, one of them's on it. Name the 3 streets. They have this, this, and this. Would that be something you'd be intrigued by and want to see? All of a sudden, I get off at 5. Why don't we go take a peek? I'll set appointments right now. Different conversation than, why don't we meet, have a big in-depth consulting appointment that's intimidating and scary for most people. And then, I've got a machine to crank out options, just a different. So that's why I think really being the master of your market and the economics, professional of choice really matters. And what about interest rates? You better have a good narrative, and you like every objection should be almost automated, real time, and also from the heart and experientially supported. So there needs to be a story behind the story, because people don't buy data and facts, they buy stories and experiences, especially the ones that are relatable. Am I making sense?
Oh man, this is awesome, Rick. Hey, well, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh my gosh, I took down darn near a whole yellow pad of notes, man. A lot of writer downers, a lot of great stuff. The bottom line is, man, just make a difference in other people's lives and serve others and um, help them get where they want to go. And it's about life experiences. That's our answer. And I just love your mindset. If it's meant to be, why not me? Do what they do. And it's not what I'm out to get, it's what I'm out to give, and just make a difference. And I think you're right. We think small, we think so small, and we really need to look at our long term vision. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and we underestimate what we can do in 5 years. So we need to think big, go big, and I love the fact that you're a man of faith. And one of my favorite verses is, "I can do all things through Him who gives me strength." So, man, hey, y'all, we got our inspiration. Now it's time to put in the perspiration. Hey, Rick, thank you so much. If someone wants to reach out and get a hold of you, what's the best way?
So rick@rickhale.com is my email, my first name and my whole name. By the way, another tip, make everything, all things marketing about, make it easy. So rick@rickhale.com. Um, just rickhale.com. You can find resources. It'll lead you to, order the book through, my own private channels, but Amazon works great. No, doesn't matter to me. But there's a tool tab. If you give me your email, one thing I won't do is sell it, but there's a tools tab with every resource and tool I use in the Future Self Workshop. And I'll add one last thing. If you want to really impact someone's life, help them get where they want to go, which is essentially what Tom said. But those tools are really effective with teams, and it can even be effective with your kids and your spouse, and generating common shared vision. So the tools are free. You can download them and use them. My cell phone, I'll type it in here right now. If you want to call me, there's a business axiom that says, I started to say it and I got, ADD'd out for a minute, but if say no to things and say yes. Well, I think the greatest gift you can give yourself is the margin in life to say yes, and not be constricted by a strict plan that's hinged on economic gain. And so I'm in a cool place in life where I get to say yes to a lot of things. I want my headstone to read, "He never said no." And so kind of figure out what your headstone reads like and reverse engineer a great life. It got quiet. Did I lose something? 404-735-4444. So try to make that easy too. I had a friend at Bell South Mobility 25 years ago.
Would you say it again, Rick?
404-735-4444.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you want me to walk you through how to host a workshop and help do this in your office or in your group or on your team, my gift is to share the gift. And so I'm blessed beyond measure, man. Life's good. And there's a plan, man. There's a plan. My goal now is to take this, by the way, and repurpose it in a way that's very strategic and specific to teenagers, 15 to 23 or 4, young people, because, again, the book started out as kind of a letter to myself as a kid, and also a leave behind, so that 5 generations from now, if I leave behind any amount of wealth or resource, I'd love for them to know the story and not chance it to, word of mouth, because you know how that goes. And I would challenge you, if your parents are still alive, to go have conversations and document, what was your experience like? Tell me more. And then ask them about their parents and their parents' parents. And what I would be surprised if they can go more than 4 or 5 generations. And so I want to also establish the tradition in my family that we all leave a legacy journal. It doesn't have to be a published book, but leave something, because man, it has lasting power. And what I want you to hear last is your story matters, and there's someone that needs your story right now. And if you're not purposeful about how you live your life and crafting and documenting that story, you may have really, you've reduced the potential to really leave an impact. But there's someone who needs your story right now, and be aware of it, and let the reticular activator, or that subconscious brain, not only draw them to you, but you recognize the opportunity to say yes more often. So I think we lost. Did we lose? I think we
We
might have
lost people that have control of this call. Actually, all of them are gone. So
How funny that we're still here. You know why we're here? Anybody? Because you're supposed to be here.
subconscious.
I live my life in a way that there are no accidents. Even the bad things, silver linings are the only way. If you can't figure out the lesson or opportunity, pain will stick with you and you can't shake it. So I repurpose pain regularly. Any ahas or thoughts or anything, since I got an extra minute, if you have to go, click goodbye. And I love you for being here, man. Today was a gift.
Hey, Rick, I really loved your 5-year vision, because, we just did a vision board in our office, and it's funny because I mean, I've kept a long-term vision of where I want my life to go. And so you'd actually say, let's do a 5-year vision board. That was kind of an aha moment for me.
That's beautiful. Well, sometimes succeeding means, or winning people is doing things people don't naturally do. I mean, I don't know many people that think like that. I didn't for years, until I stumbled upon it. And really, it took 5 years to recognize the magic, because I just didn't give up. And 1-year goals, you just tend to reset, recalibrate, and start over, where you've got enough runway to really live into something awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that feedback, Steve. That's beautiful. And I applaud you for what you're doing. The reason, again, I put it in the book is that I would teach my workshop and it would take half a day, and people would leave so fired up, and then years later call me and affirm that it was an investment that was worthy. Few things do I share or talk about that have shelf life and lasting influence. And I really want that. And I hope for that for everyone, not for me, but for you. And so that's why I keep doing it. But in the process, every time I do it, I become more self-aware of things I need to say and do or feel. And it's like we're all mirrors. And it's a cool thing when you kind of lay down that whole pretense of, as you become more vulnerable, you realize, man, we're all on the same journey. And it's just self-discovery of what matters. But it has shelf life. And afterwards, they would post them on Facebook, and I'd get like 10 calls. When are you doing it again? I missed it. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I don't really, I haven't budgeted another half day in the next month or two. And so I thought, what if I could create, and again, I don't know how many people do it or go to it or use it, but if I could give you a layup and go, hey, you know what? 4 hours from now, yours can be done. And I'm working on, by the way, an audio and a video tutorial to walk you through it as part of like a course. And it's not a course, it's really, a workshop where I explain the mechanics of why it works, and the subconscious brain, the reticular activator, and, the importance of the tribe around you. And there's a lot that I share that enlightens the purpose, because if you don't see enough purpose in it, you're prone to quitting. Cool. Anybody else? An aha, a thought? And I don't want to keep you a minute more than, I'm sure you have lots to do, but.
I absolutely love not to waste time on negativity or uncertainty, because I spend time worrying about stuff, and that time could be used so much better. So I'll definitely put a post-its on my computer screen here to remind myself. Awesome.
Yeah,
Very
that's beautiful.
powerful.
That's beautiful. What I've learned to do is also give myself 5 minutes to focus on anything that I can't. And then I remind myself that, is this going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, or 5 weeks? 9 out of 10 times, this is a very temporal experience. Like, just, so what, now what? That's like my favorite, okay, yeah, that happened, and next. But that's beautiful,
Moving on.
man. Yeah, you only
Right,
have so
yes.
much room in your head and heart, right? They call it rent-free
Right.
space. The same reason forgiveness is such a powerful, thing to consider and do, because you're carrying around this energy that just isn't it's not inspiring. All it does, it's like an anchor. It's another 20 pounds in your backpack. And man, you know, ask forgiveness, give forgiveness, leave it where it is. You know, there's another saying, control the controllables. So whenever I feel stressed, I go, all right, what's the reality of the situation and what can I control right now? And most of the time, the things that are causing me the greatest grief are the uncontrollables. And back to the so what, now what? What can I do to replace that feeling with hope and optimism? And usually it's in making a few calls to people that really are uplifting and have capacity, and a good mentor or coach or a friend. And 10 minutes later, you know, they say this too. How many I'm full of all these things. I've been just collecting ideas for decades. But if you want to feel better, go boost 5 people. There's a, you know, Zig Ziglar said this, how do you know when someone needs encouragement? And the answer is they're breathing. And don't make assumptions that you know where they are. Just call and go, hey, for some reason, man, you popped into my head and I just want you to know I care about you. What's going on? Anything I can do to make your day better? And I'm telling you, that's like lead generation on steroids, because you ask enough questions with a sincere heart, inevitably they're going to say, so what about you? And go, man, I'm busy and life's great, but I'm never too busy for people like you. Who do you know that I should know that might want to build wealth or have a better experience, and that I might be able to consult and help? And you tip the scales of reciprocity, and you pour into someone. It's like money in the bank. And, you know, I believe kindness is currency.
Love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? This is great. I'm having a blast, man. They put me with the A team.
Yeah, we're left to our own devices now. No more supervision. Love it.
That's right. Yeah, I hope Tom's first run is a good one.
I love the second question thing, to not leave it there hanging, to not be afraid to ask that second question, because then you feel like you're being pushy. But I love the response that you give to it. You tell me more about it. I like that a lot.
You're welcome. And
Thank
I
you.
can tell you specifically when I self-actualized that as truth is when I had a couple come to me, good friends, and they said, hey, we want a house, but we really want a big yard. We need an acre. And we only have, at the time, I don't remember, the average sales price in town was like 300, and they had 250 to spend, and they want an acre in the city. And I'm like, I love a good challenge. Let's go. But as soon as I made it clear with evidence that it wasn't there, I said, can you explain more about what you're looking for and why an acre matters? And it was one of those moments. I should have thought to do that on the front end, but after exhausting what was available, I ran out of things to, I was like, I don't have it. I don't think it exists. And then they filled in the blanks by saying, we really appreciate privacy. We want a fenced yard for our dog and kids to run into that's safe. And so as I started thinking, what concentric circles lead them to what they can afford that also fulfills the need? And I found them a beautiful house on like a half acre that backed up to natural forest or floodland. And all of a sudden they're like, we didn't need an acre. We actually just wanted privacy. And I'm like, that can be totally different. And that is available. And so the question behind the question is, why is an acre important, and what experience would it look like and lead you to? And why would you be so proud to give that to your family? And now you boil it down to something in their heart, not in their head. Now you're in a position of opportunity to really serve them. I'll leave one more thing. No one denies their own truth. This is straight out of a book from Susan Scott. No one denies their own truth. If you tell them, they're going to resist it. If I ask you to put your hand up like my hand's up right now, and I start pushing, you're going to push back. That's a human thing to defend, deflect, and offset pressure. But if I turn my hand in a way that we're, aligned, it's a difficult thing to resist. And so what I figured out early on is if I ask the best questions and I go 3 deep, at some point you're going to reveal a vulnerable opportunity that I can solve. And I go, so if I can fix that, solve that, or help you, is that a good thing? It's rhetorical. And there's like, so based on that, what's the next step? And it's usually, well, what would you do? And then I've given permission to prescribe there's another saying that, prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice. You ever heard that? Prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice. And we often come in because we know the top 10 reasons and we start throwing darts at it. And none of those actually resonate in their heart. It's just an intellectual pursuit. And people won't move unless it's in their heart. You know, the word motivation, motion, excuse me, is in the word emotion. People don't move without some emotional construct. You can't inspire someone without it. And the only way to get to that motion is to land in a place that's below the neck, not above the neck. It's not about X's and O's and data. So thank you for taking me there, Gina. That's a whole hour-long conversation all its own. How can I ask better questions? All right. I think we're good. You guys are awesome. This has been real fun. You've got my phone number. You've got my email. You have a web address to pull down some tools. You know where to get the book. Love to hear your experience with it, and any feedback is helpful feedback. I love feedback. It's the breakfast of champions. And if I can serve you or the people that you love, let me know. Fun times.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you, Rick.
Bye-bye.